It was an ordinary evening, the kind that comes with the last rays of the sun dipping behind the horizon, leaving a faint glow. But then, the sky went dark not from nightfall, but from something far more ominous. People around the world looked up in confusion as a shadow, unlike anything they'd ever seen, blocked out the stars. It was a craft, alien in design, yet it didn't seem to move like anything human-made. It hovered, stationary, as if watching. As news channels began to report the event, speculation swirled. Was this some sort of advanced military technology? A hoax? Or were they truly visitors from another world? Governments scrambled, gathering their best minds to decipher the sudden appearance, but none could answer the burning question: why were they here? Days passed, and the visitors remained silent, still. No signals, no movements, nothing. It was a waiting game, and humans weren't the only ones waiting. From all over the world, people felt a strange compulsion to be near the craft, as if drawn by an invisible force. Some believed it was a chance for humanity to take the next leap, others feared it was the beginning of the end. Then, on the fifth day, the silence was broken. The object emitted a soft, pulsating light, a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't loud or alarming, but it resonated in the minds of those who were close enough to see it. Messages began to appear on screens, texts and symbols no one understood, but each symbol seemed to pulse with that same eerie heartbeat. It was clear, the visitors wanted communication. They just didn't know how to make themselves understood. Desperate, scientists and linguists gathered to interpret the symbols. It was like a puzzle, one that, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't solve. It felt like something just beyond reach, a riddle too complicated for the human mind to crack. But in the midst of the chaos, one thing became clear: they weren't hostile. Their messages weren't filled with demands or threats. It was as if they were waiting for humans to understand them. The real question wasn't what they wanted, it was why they hadn't come forward and simply spoken. Weeks passed, and humanity's patience began to wear thin. Tensions rose as conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Governments put up barriers around the craft, but people tried to break through, desperate to see what was on the other side. Rumors of strange phenomena and inexplicable events followed. Some claimed that after being near the craft, they could hear voices in their heads, feel a sense of peace, or even see strange visions of the cosmos. But there was no way to prove any of it. Then, one day, something remarkable happened. A group of ordinary citizens, led by an astrophysicist named Elena, discovered an anomaly in the patterns of the symbols. One of them had changed. It was subtle, but Elena's sharp eye caught it. The symbol that had been static for days was now moving, twisting in a way that was almost organic. The changes were slow, deliberate, and they seemed to be inviting them to engage. Elena gathered a small team of experts, linguists, scientists, and a few volunteers, and approached the craft. They were met by an eerie silence as they neared it. No pulsating lights, no movement. The air was thick with anticipation. Then, just as they reached a safe distance, a soft hum resonated from the object, filling the air with a strange frequency. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly, and the air seemed to shimmer. Without warning, the object opened. It didn't split or crack, it unfolded, as if a flower blooming in slow motion. Inside, an almost blinding light filled the space, but the humans inside didn't feel the burn. They were bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, and before them, standing in the center, were beings. Tall, almost translucent, with eyes that seemed to look not just at them, but through them. They weren't frightening. They weren't menacing. They were curious. The silence between them stretched for what felt like an eternity, but in that silence, Elena felt something she hadn't expected, a sense of calm. It was as if the beings were patiently waiting for her to make the first move. She stepped forward, trembling. Her voice barely escaped her lips as she asked the question that had plagued them all: "Who are you?" The beings didn't speak, but their eyes glowed with understanding. Then, they communicated, not with words, but with thoughts. Elena felt their intentions clearly, a desire for peace, for connection. But it wasn't just that. She also felt their sorrow, their loneliness. They had traveled from the farthest reaches of space, not to conquer, but to share. They had been waiting for a civilization that could understand them, a species capable of not just hearing their message, but truly listening. Elena's mind raced. She wasn't just communicating with them, she was feeling their emotions, their history, their very essence. It was as if their minds were linked, and the weight of their journey, the burden of their solitude, pressed into her heart. But the connection was fleeting. The beings withdrew, and the light dimmed. The craft began to close, and the sense of urgency returned. They were leaving. Elena's team tried to communicate again, but the beings were already gone, disappearing into the Dark Nebula from which they had come. The craft was silent once more. But the message had been received. Months passed, and the world tried to make sense of the encounter. There were no more sightings of the beings, no more messages. The craft had returned to its quiet state, hovering above Earth, as if it were waiting for something. For the first time in human history, the world was united not just by the presence of these visitors, but by the realization that humanity was not alone. But the encounter had left questions. The visitors had shared their sorrow, their desire for connection, but they had also left with no explanation of who they truly were or why they came. Elena, haunted by the encounter, couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their story than they had revealed. She began to dive deep into research, trying to piece together what she had felt during the encounter. Then, one day, she found something in the data that didn't make sense. A signal, buried beneath the noise. It was faint, but unmistakable. The pattern was similar to the symbols the beings had shown her, but it was more complex. It wasn't just an invitation to communicate, it was a warning. The message was clear: the Dark Nebula, from which they came, was dying. It was a region of space where time and space itself were beginning to collapse. The beings, in their desperate search for a place to survive, had found Earth. But they hadn't just come for peace. They had come because their own civilization was on the brink of extinction. They needed humanity's help to survive, to share knowledge, to repair the damage that had been done to their world. But it wasn't just a plea for survival. There was something more. The beings had known that humanity wasn't just capable of understanding them. They believed humanity had the potential to help them heal their world, to learn from them and evolve. They hadn't just shared their sorrow. They had given humanity a gift, an opportunity to help another species, to be part of something greater than themselves. The world was forever changed by that one moment, by that one encounter. Humans had been given the opportunity to connect with a species from the stars, to share in their journey and, in return, share their own. The question was no longer just about survival, it was about what humanity would do with this gift. Would they help? Or would they turn their backs on the beings who had come seeking salvation? As Elena looked to the stars, she realized that this wasn't just an encounter between two species. It was a turning point in history. The choice was in humanity's hands, and the future of both civilizations rested on what they did next.